Hello, everyone. A lot of today's news about Ukraine are connected to other events in the world. Once again, demonstrated that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was never just about Ukraine. That was never going to be the case. Everything is connected. So, what have we got? One of the stories talks about Russia's supplying intelligence to Iran, this time with receipts. We are not just talking about the intelligence obtained from chatter or the intelligence obtained by Russian spies in the region or Russian spy networks abroad. We are talking about Russia using its satellites. So, while flying over the Middle East, Russian satellites made detailed photographs of military facilities and critical sites across the Middle East. That includes the American military bases and other targets. We are talking about at least 24 surveys of the areas in 11 Middle Eastern countries for 10 days in March, covering 46 objects, and US bases were among them. Within days of that survey by the Russian satellites, those objects were attacked by Iranian missiles and drones. In addition, the Russian satellites were also surveying the Strait of Hormuz, and my question to everyone involved: what are you guys going to do about this? We know that the US is going to be likely useless about this because Trump and Putin are BFFs still. He's just not going to accept any evidence, even hard evidence like this, that showed the damage that Russia had done. So, what are you going to do about this? This is not a game. This is no longer in Ukraine. The satellite images also included the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. And again, this was just days before it got hit. And then the satellite passed over it again to assess the damage. And who's to say where those satellites are now and what they're photographing now? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one in the world or in the United States who basically doesn't trust anything coming out of the White House right now. So, we know more likely than not that it was Iran that got its wish list, not the United States. So it is very likely that those surveys are still going on. J.D. Vance made a speech that he should not have made, saying that Ukrainian war is the hardest to solve. He criticized Europe and praised Orban. Let's take this apart for a second. No, the war in Ukraine is not the hardest to solve. All you have to do is oppose Russia. That's it. There's nothing hard about it. Russia invaded Ukraine. You have to side with Ukraine to get Russia out of Ukraine. That's it. piece of cake. Slamming Europe. Europe has been essential in filling the holes left in support of Ukraine after the beginning of this Trump administration. Europe has been essential at collaborating with Ukraine. Europe has been essential at housing Ukrainian refugees. So, Mr. Vice President, shut your ignorant trap. And of course he praised Orban. Of course, Orban, who is still opposing the aid packet to Ukraine. Orban, who had accused Ukraine of trying to manipulate Hungarian elections coming up in 4 days. Orban, who accused Ukraine of trying to assassinate him. None of which has any factual evidence behind it. Orban, who has been selling out to Putin. Orban, who basically offered himself as a mole in the European Union, offered himself in that capacity to Putin literally days ago. Yeah, by all means, tell me all about how wonderful he is. Stories continue coming in about foreign nationals who were hoodwinked into serving under Russia in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now we have information about 16 people from the Cameroons who were killed. And that's, again, those are the ones that we know of. Because remember, Russia suppresses information about its casualties. There are likely bodies that are missing. There's likely paperwork that is missing. So this is what we know about today. There's likely a lot more. More journalists who have been trying to cover the war in Ukraine had died in 2025 than in any of the prior years. And that doesn't surprise me. There, as you know, has also been an increase in civilian deaths because Russia had upped its attacks on civilians. And we know that in June 2024, so almost 2 years ago, the number of media workers killed was 91. We're now up to 147. At least 21 of those were killed while performing their professional duties, so while gathering information and reporting. And 70 of the incidents involved the destruction of their equipment and property. We also have 28 Ukrainian journalists, again, that we know of, that are in Russian custody. And, yep, there it is. The figure is not final because of the limited access to information. So, I know a lot of people are worried about the freedom of the press in the United States, and you absolutely should be. This is what Russia does to journalists. And there's been another hacking campaign uncovered through a collaboration between FBI and Ukraine's security services. Remember the trouble that Russia had run into with the Starlink terminals? Well, they have initiated a hacking campaign to steal people's credentials, passwords, VPN information, and so on and so forth, to see if they can work around that and leverage that information to link up in the invaded Ukrainian territory. And if you think that's the only place they're doing that, think harder. More to come.